The first sign something was wrong came on a Tuesday morning in March, exactly 11 months after Jennifer and I had exchanged vows at the little chapel downtown. I was pouring coffee into my travel mug when she walked into the kitchen, already dressed in her navy business suit, checking her phone with an intensity I hadn't seen before. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. "Morning, honey," I said, offering her the second cup I'd prepared. She glanced up, startled, as if she'd forgotten I was there. "Oh, thanks, David." Her fingers moved quickly across the screen before she slipped the phone into her purse. "Everything okay at work?" "Fine, just some project updates." She kissed my cheek, but her mind was clearly elsewhere. "I might be late tonight. Mr. Harrison wants the marketing team to stay for a strategy session." Mr. Harrison, my boss. The man who had hired me as a senior accountant at Harrison & Associates 18 months ago, 6 months before Jennifer and I got married. The man who had recently started asking surprisingly detailed questions about my wife. "Tell him I said hello," I said, watching her face carefully. Something flickered across her expression, too quick to identify, but definitely there. "Sure, I'll see you tonight." After she left, I stood in our kitchen, staring at the spot where she'd been. In 11 months of marriage, Jennifer had never mentioned working directly with Harrison. She was employed at a different company entirely, a small marketing firm across town called Creative Solutions. I shook my head, telling myself I was being paranoid. Marriage was an adjustment. People changed, people grew. Sometimes they grew in different directions, but that didn't automatically mean something sinister was happening. At work that morning, Harrison called me into his office around 10:30. His corner office overlooked the city's business district, with floor-to-ceiling windows that made everything feel exposed and transparent. Ironic, considering what I would later discover. "David, sit down." He gestured to the leather chair across from his mahogany desk. "How are things going? Settling into married life well?" "Very well, thank you." I kept my voice professional, though something about his tone made me uncomfortable. "Jennifer seems like a remarkable woman, intelligent, ambitious." He leaned back in his chair, studying me. "Has she ever considered working in a larger firm? Someone with her skills could really thrive in a more dynamic environment." "I think she's happy where she is." Of course. But we're always looking for talented marketing professionals. If she ever wants to explore new opportunities, she should give me a call directly." The way he said directly sent an odd chill through me. "I'll mention it to her." "Please do. In fact, why don't you both come to our company retreat next month? Spouses are welcome, and it would be a great opportunity for Jennifer to network, see what we're all about." I nodded, though every instinct told me something was off about this conversation. Harrison had never shown interest in employees' spouses before. He was known for keeping his professional and personal lives completely separate. "There's something else," he continued, opening a folder on his desk. "I'm putting together a special project team, high visibility, potential for significant advancement. I'd like you to consider leading it." This was unexpected. I'd been hoping for more responsibility, but Harrison had always seemed to view me as competent but unremarkable. "What kind of project?" "Client acquisition and retention analysis. You'd work closely with our marketing consultants, maybe even bring in some outside expertise." He smiled, and something about that smile made my stomach tighten. I think Jennifer's perspective could be invaluable. There it was again. Jennifer. In a conversation about my career advancement, he'd managed to bring up my wife twice. "I appreciate the opportunity. Can I think about it?" "Of course, but don't take too long. I'd like to get started soon." He stood, indicating the meeting was over. "And David?" "Do encourage Jennifer to come to that retreat. I think she'd find it very enlightening." I left his office with more questions than answers. Back at my desk, I tried to focus on the quarterly reports spread across my monitor, but my mind kept returning to Harrison's unusual interest in Jennifer. That evening, Jennifer arrived home at nearly 9 o'clock, later than usual even for her legitimate late meetings. She looked flushed, energized in a way I hadn't seen in months. "How was your day?" she asked, dropping her purse by the door and heading straight for the kitchen. "Interesting. Harrison offered me a promotion opportunity." She froze with the refrigerator door half open. "Really? That's wonderful. What kind of opportunity?" I explained the project, watching her reaction carefully. When I mentioned the company retreat and Harrison's suggestion that she attend, her face lit up with an enthusiasm that seemed disproportionate. "That sounds amazing. When is it?" "Next month. You really want to go?" "Of course. It could be great for both our careers." She pulled out ingredients for a quick dinner, moving with unusual energy. "Mr. Harrison sounds like a very thoughtful boss." "You've never met him?" "No, but from what you've told me, he seems to really value his employees." She paused, then added, "Maybe I should send him a thank you note for including spouses in the retreat." "That's not necessary. I think it would be a nice gesture, professional courtesy." She was already reaching for her phone. "Do you have his direct email?" Something cold settled in my chest. "Why would you need his direct email?" "To send the note, unless you think I should go through his assistant." "Jennifer, you don't need to send him anything. It's really not that kind of situation." She looked at me with an expression I couldn't quite read. "You're right. I'm probably overthinking it." But she didn't put her phone away immediately. Instead, she glanced at the screen, and I caught the briefest smile before she slipped it into her pocket. Later that night, as we got ready for bed, I noticed Jennifer checking her phone repeatedly. Each time, she would glance at me first, as if making sure I wasn't paying attention. "Expecting something important?" I asked. "Just work emails. You know how it is." But she turned the phone face down on her nightstand, something she'd never done before. I lay awake long after Jennifer's breathing had settled into the rhythm of sleep, staring at the ceiling and trying to make sense of the day's events. Harrison's sudden interest in my wife, Jennifer's enthusiastic reaction to meeting him, her secretive behavior with her phone. Maybe I was connecting dots that weren't meant to be connected. Maybe this was just a coincidence, a series of innocent interactions that my suspicious mind was twisting into something sinister. But as I finally drifted off to sleep, one thought kept circling back. In all our conversations about work, Jennifer had never once mentioned knowing who my boss was, let alone having any reason to contact him directly. The next morning brought more of the same strange behavior. Jennifer was up before her alarm, showering and dressing with unusual care. She spent extra time on her makeup and chose a dress I'd only seen her wear to special occasions. "Big presentation today?" I asked over breakfast. "Something like that." She checked her phone, smiled at whatever she saw, then quickly put it away when she noticed me watching. "Jennifer, is everything okay between us?" The question seemed to catch her off guard. "Of course. Why would you ask that?" "You seem different lately. Distracted." "I'm fine, David. Just focused on work. You know how important my career is to me." I did know. It was one of the things I'd always admired about her. But this felt different. This felt like she was focused on something else entirely, something she couldn't or wouldn't share with me. After she left, I sat in our kitchen, drinking my second cup of coffee and trying to shake the feeling that my marriage was shifting in ways I didn't understand. The woman who had left for work that morning looked like my wife, sounded like my wife, but something fundamental had changed. I was about to leave for work when her phone buzzed on the counter. She'd forgotten it, something that never happened. Jennifer was practically attached to that device. The screen lit up with a notification. A text message from a contact labeled simply H. The preview showed just the beginning. "Looking forward to seeing you again." My hands trembled as I stared at the screen. H. Harrison. My boss was texting my wife, and she had him saved in her contacts. The phone went dark, leaving me standing alone in our kitchen with the terrible certainty that everything I thought I knew about my marriage was about to change. I spent the entire morning at work in a haze, mechanically processing spreadsheets while my mind raced through possibilities. Each scenario I constructed felt worse than the last. By lunchtime, I had convinced myself that I was overreacting, that there had to be a reasonable explanation for Harrison texting Jennifer. Maybe he was planning a surprise related to my promotion. Maybe Jennifer had already reached out to him professionally, despite my suggestion that it wasn't necessary. Maybe I was letting paranoia destroy my marriage over nothing. But when I returned home that evening, Jennifer's phone was nowhere to be seen, and she mentioned nothing about forgetting it that morning. "How was your day?" she asked, the same question she'd asked every day for 11 months, but now it sounded rehearsed. "Fine. Busy." I watched her face carefully. "Did you have your phone with you all day?" "Of course. Why?" "Just wondering. You seem so attached to it lately." She laughed, but it sounded forced. "Everyone's attached to their phone these days, David. It's hardly unusual." That night, she took her phone into the bathroom when she showered, something she'd never done before. When she came out, she placed it on her nightstand but kept it face down again. I waited until she was asleep, then carefully lifted myself from bed and moved to her side. The phone was locked, of course, but I knew her passcode, our wedding date. At least, it had been our wedding date 6 months ago when she'd used it in front of me. I tried it. The screen flashed red. Incorrect passcode. My heart hammered as I tried a few other possibilities. Her birthday. My birthday. The date we'd first met. Nothing worked. She had changed her passcode and hadn't told me. In 11 months of marriage, we'd never hidden our phones from each other. We'd shared everything: passwords, accounts, dreams, fears. Now she was protecting her device like it contained state secrets. The next few days passed in a blur of mounting suspicion and careful observation. Jennifer's behavior became increasingly erratic. She would disappear into the bathroom or bedroom to take calls, claiming they were work-related. She started working late more frequently, always with explanations that sounded plausible but felt rehearsed. Meanwhile, at work, Harrison's interest in my personal life intensified. He asked about Jennifer daily, how she was doing, whether she'd given more thought to the company retreat, if she might be interested in freelance marketing work. "You know," he said during one particularly uncomfortable conversation, "I've been thinking about that project I mentioned. It might require some evening work, some weekend collaboration. Would Jennifer be supportive of that kind of schedule? I think she'd understand that career advancement sometimes requires extra effort." "Good, good. It's so important to have a supportive spouse, someone who understands ambition." He paused, studying me. "Jennifer strikes me as very understanding. Very flexible." Something about the way he said flexible made my skin crawl. That Friday evening, Jennifer announced she would be working late again. "Big client presentation on Monday. The team needs to rehearse." "Which client?" "Morrison Industries. They're looking for a complete rebranding campaign." I nodded, filing away the information. Later, after she left, I called Creative Solutions and asked to speak with someone about the Morrison Industries account. "I'm sorry," the receptionist said, "but we don't have any clients by that name." The lies were piling up, each one more careless than the last. Jennifer was either having an affair or planning one, and my boss was somehow involved. I spent that evening walking around our house, looking at the life we'd built together with new eyes. The wedding photos on the mantel, the furniture we'd chosen together, the little touches that made this place ours. All of it felt contaminated now by deception. Around 11 o'clock, I heard Jennifer's key in the lock. She came in looking disheveled, her lipstick gone and her hair slightly mussed. "How did the rehearsal go?" I asked from the living room. She jumped, clearly not expecting me to still be awake. Oh, fine, good. We're ready for Monday. That's great. Morrison Industries should be impressed. I watched her face carefully, looking for any sign that she remembered the lie she'd told. Instead, she just nodded absently and headed for the stairs. I'm exhausted, going to bed. Jennifer, wait. She turned back, and for a moment, I saw something in her expression, guilt, fear, maybe even regret. I love you, I said. Her face softened. I love you too, David. But as she climbed the stairs, I noticed she was still clutching her phone, and I wondered if she was thinking about someone else entirely. The following Monday, I made a decision that would change everything. During my lunch break, I drove across town to Creative Solutions. The office was smaller than I'd expected, housed in a converted Victorian home with maybe a dozen employees. I asked to speak with Jennifer Walsh, using her maiden name. I'm sorry, the young woman at the front desk said, but we don't have anyone by that name working here. Jennifer Thompson, then. She might go by her married name. The woman checked her computer, then shook her head. No Jennifer Thompson either. Are you sure you have the right company? My legs felt weak. Could you check for any Jennifer? Maybe she's new? We have a Jennifer Martinez in accounting, but she's been here for 5 years. That's our only Jennifer. I thanked her and walked back to my car on unsteady legs. Jennifer didn't work at Creative Solutions. She never had. For the entire time I'd known her, she'd been lying about her job, her schedule, her whereabouts during the day. But if she wasn't working at Creative Solutions, where was she going every day? How was she supporting herself? And what did any of this have to do with Harrison? That evening, I confronted her as gently as I could manage. Jennifer, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest with me. She was in the kitchen, preparing dinner with unusual focus. Of course. I went by your office today. Her knife stopped moving. She didn't turn around. They said you don't work there. The silence stretched between us like a chasm. Finally, she set down the knife and turned to face me. Her expression was calm, almost relieved. How long have you known? Just today, but I've suspected something was wrong for weeks. She nodded slowly. I suppose this was inevitable. Where do you really work, Jennifer? I don't, not anymore. She leaned against the counter, suddenly looking exhausted. I was let go from Creative Solutions 8 months ago. Budget cuts. They eliminated my position. 8 months ago? We've been married for 11 months. You've been lying to me for most of our marriage? I was embarrassed, ashamed. You were doing so well at your new job, and I was failing. So what have you been doing all day? Where do you go? Job interviews, networking events, the library sometimes, working on freelance projects. She met my eyes. I've been trying to find something permanent, but the market is competitive. It sounded plausible, even sympathetic, but it didn't explain Harrison's interest in her, or the secretive phone calls, or the lies about Morrison Industries. What about last Friday? You said you were working late on a presentation. Her composure cracked slightly. I was meeting with a potential client. At 11 o'clock at night? It was a dinner meeting. It ran late. What client? David, please. I'm trying to rebuild my career. Can't you trust me to handle this my own way? Trust. The word hung between us like an accusation. How could I trust her when everything she'd told me for months had been a lie? I want to trust you, Jennifer, but I need honesty. I'm being honest now. Are you? Because there's something else. I took a deep breath. My boss has been asking about you, a lot. He wants you to come to the company retreat, wants to offer you freelance work, and I saw a text from someone saved as H in your contacts. The color drained from her face. You looked at my phone? You forgot it one morning. The notification popped up. You had no right. I had no right? Jennifer, you've been lying to me for 8 months. You've been getting texts from my boss, who suddenly has an unusual interest in my wife. What am I supposed to think? She was quiet for a long moment, staring at the floor. When she looked up, her eyes were filled with tears. "It's not what you think." "Then tell me what it is." "I can't. Not yet." "Why not?" "Because—" She wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. "Because I'm not ready for this marriage to be over." The words hit me like a physical blow. What does that mean? It means I've made mistakes, David. Big ones. And I'm trying to fix them before they destroy everything we've built together. What kind of mistakes? The kind that can't be undone. Only managed. She turned and walked out of the kitchen, leaving me standing alone with more questions than ever, and the terrible certainty that whatever Jennifer was hiding, it was worse than anything I'd imagined. That night, she slept in the guest room, claiming she needed space to think. I lay awake in our bed, staring at the ceiling and trying to process everything I'd learned. Jennifer had been unemployed for 8 months, lying about her whereabouts and activities. She was in contact with my boss, who was showing unusual interest in both of us. She was receiving late-night texts and taking secretive phone calls. And now, she was talking about mistakes that couldn't be undone, about managing damage, about the potential end of our marriage. I had 2 choices. I could continue to live in this state of uncertainty and suspicion, or I could take action to discover the truth. By morning, I had made my decision. The next day, I called in sick to work. For the first time in my career, I was going to use a personal day to investigate my own life. Jennifer left at her usual time, still maintaining the pretense of having somewhere professional to go, and I followed her. I'd never tailed anyone before, and I was probably terrible at it, but Jennifer seemed completely unaware of my presence 3 cars behind her. She drove downtown, parked in a garage, and walked 2 blocks to the Marriott Hotel. My stomach dropped. A hotel, in the middle of a Tuesday morning. I parked across the street and watched through the lobby's floor-to-ceiling windows as Jennifer approached the front desk. She spoke with the clerk briefly, then headed toward the elevators. She wasn't checking in. She knew exactly where she was going. I waited 20 minutes, then entered the hotel myself. The lobby was busy with business travelers and tourists, providing good cover as I positioned myself near the elevator bank. I had no plan beyond seeing who else might be heading upstairs, but I didn't have to wait long. Harrison emerged from the parking garage elevator at exactly 10:30, straightening his tie and checking his watch. He looked around the lobby once, then headed for the same elevator bank Jennifer had used. The pieces fell into place with sickening clarity. My wife and my boss were meeting at a hotel during business hours. The secretive phone calls, the changed passcode, the lies about work. It all made horrible sense now. I felt dizzy, nauseated, and furious all at once. Part of me wanted to storm upstairs and confront them immediately, but a cooler part of my mind, the analytical part that made me good at my job, recognized that I needed more information before I acted. I drove home and spent the rest of the day researching Harrison's personal life. It didn't take long to find what I was looking for. He was married to a woman named Patricia Harrison, a real estate agent with her own successful practice. They had been married for 15 years and had 2 teenage children. Patricia Harrison had no idea her husband was meeting my wife at downtown hotels. That evening, Jennifer returned home at her usual time, acting as if nothing had happened. She was cheerful, affectionate, asking about my day, and sharing meaningless details about her supposed job search. "I had a promising interview today," she said over dinner. "Marketing coordinator position at a tech startup. The salary isn't great, but it could lead to bigger opportunities." I nodded and made appropriate sounds of encouragement while studying her face. She was a better liar than I'd given her credit for. If I hadn't seen her enter that hotel myself, I might have believed her. "That's great, honey. Where's the company located?" "Downtown, near the business district." She took a sip of wine. "Actually, it's not far from your office. Maybe we could start having lunch together again, like we used to." The casual cruelty of the suggestion, meeting for lunch while she was conducting an affair practically next door, made my chest tighten with rage. "That sounds nice," I managed. After dinner, Jennifer retreated to the living room with her phone while I cleaned the kitchen. Through the doorway, I could see her typing rapidly, pausing to read responses, then typing again. She was smiling. I made my own decision that night. The next morning, after Jennifer left for her fictional job, I looked up Patricia Harrison's real estate office and drove there. Harrison Realty occupied a small but elegant storefront in an upscale shopping district. Through the window, I could see a woman in her early 40s with short blonde hair and a professional demeanor, speaking on the phone at a desk covered with property listings. I sat in my car for nearly an hour, trying to find the courage to go inside. What was I going to say? "Hello, I'm David Thompson. I think your husband is having an affair with my wife?" How do you start a conversation like that with a complete stranger? Finally, I forced myself out of the car and into the office. "Good morning," Patricia Harrison said, ending her phone call and standing to greet me. "How can I help you?" She was attractive in a polished, professional way, with kind eyes and a warm smile. Looking at her made me feel sick about what I was about to do to her day, her week, possibly her entire life. "Mrs. Harrison, my name is David Thompson. I work for your husband at Harrison & Associates." "Oh, how nice. Please call me Patricia. Are you looking to buy or sell?" "Actually, I'm here about something else. Something personal." I took a deep breath. "I think we need to talk about our spouses." Her smile faded. "I'm sorry? Could we sit down? This is difficult." She gestured to the chairs by her desk, her expression shifting from professional warmth to cautious concern. "Mr. Thompson, you're making me nervous. I'm sorry. I don't know how else to do this." I sat down, my hands trembling slightly. "I have reason to believe that your husband and my wife are involved." The words hung in the air between us. Patricia's face went through a series of expressions: confusion, disbelief, then something that looked like recognition. "Involved how?" "I think they're having an affair." She was quiet for a long moment, staring at her hands. When she looked up, her eyes were bright with unshed tears. "What's your wife's name?" Jennifer Thompson." Patricia nodded slowly. "Blonde? About 5'6", very attractive?" My heart sank. "You know her?" "I've seen her. 3 weeks ago, I went to surprise Robert with lunch at his office. His secretary said he was in a meeting, but I decided to wait." She paused, collecting herself. "A woman matching that description came out of his office. They were comfortable with each other. Familiar." "Did you ask him about it?" "I tried. He said she was a potential client, someone looking for marketing consultation." Patricia's laugh was bitter. "I've been married to Robert for 15 years. I know when he's lying." We sat in silence for a moment, two people who had just confirmed each other's worst fears. "What do we do now?" I asked. Patricia stood and walked to her window, looking out at the street. "I don't know. Part of me has been expecting this for years. Robert he's always been attracted to younger women. He thinks he's subtle about it, but he's not." "Have you considered confronting him?" "Many times. But I kept telling myself I was being paranoid, jealous." She turned back to me. "What about you? Have you talked to your wife?" "I tried. She admits she's been lying about some things, but she won't tell me the truth about this." "How long have you been married?" 11 months. Patricia's expression softened with sympathy. "Oh, David, I'm so sorry. How long have you suspected?" "Honestly, years. There have been other women, other situations that didn't quite add up. But I stayed because of the children, because of the life we'd built." She returned to her chair. "What kind of evidence do you have?" I told her about Harrison's unusual interest in Jennifer, the secretive phone calls, the hotel meeting I'd witnessed. With each detail, Patricia's expression grew grimmer. The Marriott downtown, she said when I finished. That's where he takes them. Them? This isn't his first affair, David. It's just the first one that's affected someone I've met. She paused. Someone I like. What do you mean? I mean, you came here to warn me about something I already knew, at considerable personal cost to yourself. You could have just filed for divorce and let me figure it out on my own, but you didn't. I hadn't thought about it that way. I couldn't let you live in ignorance when I had information that affected your life. Exactly. You're a decent person caught in an indecent situation. Patricia leaned forward. So here's what I propose. Instead of confronting them separately and giving them a chance to coordinate their lies, what if we confronted them together? Together? Think about it. Right now, they feel safe because they think we don't know. They can deny everything, claim we're being paranoid or jealous. But if we present a united front, with evidence, they can't dismiss us as easily. The idea was both terrifying and appealing. What kind of confrontation did you have in mind? Something public enough that they can't make a scene, but private enough that we can speak freely. Patricia's eyes hardened with determination. I'm thinking dinner, the four of us. Somewhere nice, civilized. You want to invite them to dinner and then confront them about their affair? I want to invite them to dinner and watch them try to explain their relationship while sitting across from both of their spouses. It was bold, risky, and potentially catastrophic. It was also the most honest conversation I'd had with anyone in weeks. When? I asked. This weekend, Saturday night. I'll call Robert and suggest we meet his promising new employee and her husband. Patricia smiled grimly. He won't be able to refuse without raising suspicions. And I'll tell Jennifer that you called me directly to set up a social meeting, that you're interested in getting to know the spouses of Robert's key employees. Perfect. By the time they realize what's happening, it'll be too late to back out gracefully. We exchanged phone numbers and agreed to coordinate the details. As I prepared to leave, Patricia stopped me. David, I want you to know, whatever happens Saturday night, I'm glad you came to see me today. Even though I've probably ruined your afternoon? You've given me something I haven't had in years. What's that? An ally. Driving home, I felt something I hadn't experienced in weeks. Hope. Not hope that my marriage could be saved. I was increasingly certain it couldn't. But hope that I wouldn't have to face the truth alone. Jennifer was waiting when I got home, sitting at the kitchen table with her laptop open and papers spread around her. There you are, she said, looking up with a smile. I was starting to worry. Sorry, I had some errands to run. No problem. I've been working on my portfolio, updating my resume. She gestured to the papers. I want to be ready for whatever opportunities come up. I looked at the documents scattered across our table, marketing samples, project descriptions, references from jobs she may or may not have actually held. Everything looked professional and legitimate, but now I questioned every detail. That's smart, I said. Being prepared is important. Exactly. You never know when the right opportunity will present itself. She closed the laptop and began gathering the papers. By the way, I have some exciting news. Oh? I've been invited to a networking event this weekend, Saturday night. Some of the city's top marketing professionals will be there. Her eyes were bright with enthusiasm. It could be exactly what I need to get back on track. Saturday night. The same night Patricia and I had planned our confrontation dinner. That sounds great, I said carefully. Where's the event? Downtown, at the Marriott. Of course it was. Will you be okay on your own Saturday night? She asked. I know we usually spend weekends together, but this could be really important for my career. Actually, I might have plans too. My boss's wife called today. She wants to meet you, maybe have dinner this weekend. Jennifer's face went pale. Patricia Harrison called you? You know her name? Robert mentioned her. Your boss. She was scrambling now, trying to recover. What did she want? Like I said, she wants to meet you. She's interested in getting to know the spouses of Robert's employees better. This weekend? Saturday night. Jennifer stared at me for a long moment, and I could practically see her mind racing through possibilities and calculations. I don't think I can make it, she said finally. This networking event is too important to miss. I'm sure she'd understand if we rescheduled. When is your event? The timing is flexible, but I've already committed to attending. Where exactly is it again? The Marriott, I told you. What time? 7:30. Perfect. Patricia suggested we meet at 7. You could join us for dinner and then go to your networking event afterward. Jennifer looked trapped. I don't think that would work. Why not? Because... She paused, searching for an excuse. Because I need time to prepare, to get in the right mindset for networking. Jennifer, this is my boss's wife. She's making an effort to include you in their social circle. This could be good for both our careers. I understand that, but what? You'd rather go to a networking event than have dinner with the people who could actually help advance my career? She was caught between competing lies, unable to commit to either without exposing the other. Fine, she said finally. I'll try to make it work. Great. I'll call Patricia back and confirm. That night, as Jennifer took her phone into the bathroom for her shower, I lay in bed thinking about Saturday night. In 3 days, both of our marriages would probably be over, but at least the lies would finally stop. Friday morning brought an unexpected complication. Harrison called me into his office with an expression I'd never seen before, nervous, almost agitated. David, sit down. We need to discuss something. I settled into the familiar chair across from his desk, wondering if he somehow knew about my conversation with Patricia. It's about tomorrow night, he began, then paused. My wife has arranged some kind of dinner. She wants to meet Jennifer. Yes, she called me about that. I think it's a nice gesture. Harrison studied my face carefully. Do you know why she suddenly wants to meet your wife? She said something about getting to know the spouses of your key employees better, building a more connected workplace community. That doesn't sound like Patricia. Maybe she's trying something new. Maybe. But he didn't look convinced. David, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest with me. My pulse quickened. Of course. Have you said anything to anyone about Jennifer's interest in working here? About the conversations we've had regarding her potential involvement in company projects? The question was so loaded with implication that I had to be careful with my answer. I haven't discussed Jennifer's career prospects with anyone outside our household. It was technically true. I hadn't discussed Jennifer's career prospects with Patricia. I'd discussed Jennifer's affair. Good. It's just... Patricia seemed very specific about wanting to meet Jennifer. She even knew her name, which I found odd since I don't typically discuss employees' personal lives at home. Maybe she's more interested in your work than you realize. Perhaps. Harrison leaned back in his chair. There's something else. I may need to cancel tomorrow night. Cancel? A client emergency. You understand how it is. I understood perfectly. He was getting cold feet about sitting across a dinner table from both his wife and his mistress. That's too bad. Patricia seemed really excited about meeting Jennifer. I'm sure we can reschedule. Of course, though Jennifer was looking forward to it. She's been eager to meet the people in your professional circle. Something flickered across Harrison's expression. She's eager to meet Patricia. Very much so. She thinks building relationships with spouses could be beneficial for both our careers. Harrison was quiet for a moment, processing this information. I could almost see him weighing the risks of canceling against the risks of attending. You know what? He said finally. Let me see if I can resolve this client situation. Maybe we can make dinner work after all. I'm sure Patricia would appreciate that. Yes, I'm sure she would. I left his office with the strange satisfaction of having maneuvered my boss into attending his own confrontation. Now I just had to make sure Jennifer couldn't find a way to escape. That evening, I found her in our bedroom, standing in front of her closet with an expression of intense concentration. "Planning your outfit for tomorrow?" I asked. "Something like that." She pulled out a black dress, held it up to herself in the mirror, then put it back. "I want to make a good impression on Patricia. I thought you had that networking event." "I'm going to skip it. You're right. Dinner with your boss and his wife is more important." This was unexpected. "What changed your mind?" "I realized you were right about priorities. This dinner could be good for both of us." She selected a navy blue dress, more conservative than her usual choices. "What's Patricia like?" "I've only met her once, briefly. She seems nice, professional." "What does she do?" "Real estate." Jennifer nodded, filing away the information. "And they've been married how long?" 15 years. "Children?" 2 teenagers. She was gathering intelligence, trying to prepare for what she clearly recognized as a potentially dangerous situation. But she couldn't back out now without raising more suspicions than she was prepared to handle. "Where are we meeting them?" "Chez Laurent, downtown." "Expensive. Patricia's choice. I think she wants to make it special." "I'm sure she does." Saturday evening arrived with unseasonable warmth and clear skies. Jennifer spent over an hour getting ready, changing clothes twice and redoing her makeup. She was nervous, but trying to hide it behind careful preparation. "You look beautiful," I told her as we prepared to leave. "Thank you." She checked her reflection one more time. "David, before we go, is there anything I should know about tonight?" "What do you mean?" "About Patricia. About why she really wants to meet me." It was the closest she'd come to acknowledging that something unusual was happening. "I think she just wants to get to know you." "Right." But her expression suggested she didn't believe it any more than I did. Chez Laurent was exactly the kind of restaurant Patricia had described, upscale enough to discourage public scenes, but intimate enough for private conversations. We arrived first and were seated at a corner table with a view of the entrance. "They're not here yet," Jennifer observed, checking her watch. "Patricia said 7:30. It's only 7:20. "Right." She was fidgeting with her napkin, glancing toward the entrance every few seconds. Whatever she was expecting from this evening, it wasn't a pleasant social dinner. At exactly 7:30, Patricia and Harrison walked through the restaurant's front door. Patricia looked elegant in a charcoal gray dress and pearls. Harrison looked like he was attending his own execution. I stood to greet them, and Jennifer followed suit. The moment Patricia and Jennifer made eye contact, something electric passed between them. Recognition, wariness, the instant understanding that they were adversaries. "Patricia, this is my wife Jennifer. Jennifer, this is Patricia Harrison." "So nice to finally meet you," Patricia said, extending her hand with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Likewise," Jennifer replied, accepting the handshake. "Robert has told me so much about you." It was a small slip, but telling. Jennifer had just admitted to having personal conversations with Harrison about his wife. "Has he?" Patricia's voice was perfectly pleasant. "How interesting. He rarely discusses family matters with business associates." Harrison cleared his throat. "Should we sit down? Order some wine?" We settled around the table with Patricia and me on one side, Jennifer and Harrison on the other. The symbolism wasn't lost on anyone. "So, Jennifer," Patricia began once we'd ordered drinks, "David tells me you work in marketing." "That's right." "What company?" Jennifer hesitated for just a moment. "I'm between positions right now, exploring new opportunities." "How exciting. What kind of opportunities?" "Various consulting projects, freelance work." "With anyone we might know?" Another pause. "Possibly." Patricia smiled. "The marketing world is so small, isn't it? Everyone seems to know everyone else." "It can be." I watched Harrison during this exchange. He was tense, barely touching his wine, glancing between his wife and my wife like he was watching a tennis match. "Robert," Patricia continued, turning to her husband, "didn't you mention that Jennifer might be interested in doing some work with your firm?" We discussed it briefly. "What kind of work?" "Just general consultation, nothing specific. But you've had several conversations about it." It wasn't a question. "A few." "How many is a few, Robert?" The temperature at our table seemed to drop 10 degrees. Harrison realized he was being interrogated, but he couldn't figure out how to escape without making things worse. "I don't know. Several." "And these conversations took place where? At the office?" Jennifer intervened. "Patricia, I hope you don't mind my husband's boss taking an interest in my career. I know some spouses might find that inappropriate." It was a direct challenge, delivered with a sweet smile and poison in her voice. "Not at all," Patricia replied smoothly. "I just find it curious that Robert would discuss business matters with someone who doesn't actually work for his company. Unless, of course, your relationship is more personal." The word hung in the air like a blade. "I'm not sure what you're implying," Jennifer said. "I'm not implying anything. I'm stating it directly." Patricia's composure was perfect, but her eyes were steel. "You're having an affair with my husband." The silence that followed was deafening. Other diners continued their conversations around us, oblivious to the drama unfolding at our corner table. Harrison found his voice first. "Patricia, that's completely inappropriate." "Is it inappropriate, Robert? Or is it accurate?" "It's insane." "Then you won't mind explaining why you were seen entering the Marriott Hotel last Tuesday morning, 20 minutes after Jennifer here?" Harrison's face went white. Jennifer looked like she might be sick. "I can explain that," Harrison said weakly. "Please do." "It was a business meeting." "In a hotel room?" "The client preferred privacy." "What client?" That's confidential." Patricia turned to Jennifer. "What about you? Can you tell us about this mysterious client who requires hotel room meetings?" Jennifer was staring at her hands, saying nothing. "No? How about you explain why you've been lying to your husband about where you work? David, did you know that Jennifer was terminated from Creative Solutions 8 months ago?" I nodded. "She told me." "Did she tell you that she's been meeting my husband at hotels twice a week for the past month?" Jennifer's head snapped up. "How could you possibly know that?" "Because I hired a private investigator 6 weeks ago. I have photographs, credit card records, hotel receipts." Patricia opened her purse and placed a manila envelope on the table. "Would you like to see them?" No one moved to touch the envelope. "This is harassment," Harrison said, but his voice lacked conviction. "This is evidence," Patricia corrected. "Evidence of adultery, which in this state is grounds for divorce and affects the distribution of marital assets." She turned back to Jennifer. "Did you know Robert has done this before? You're not his first affair, just his most recent." Jennifer's face crumpled. "That's not true." "Isn't it? Robert, would you like to tell Jennifer about Sandra? Or Michelle? Or should I?" Harrison looked defeated. "Patricia, please what? Please continue to pretend I don't know? Please keep financing your affairs with my real estate commissions? Please keep humiliating myself while you chase women young enough to be our daughter?" The fight went out of him visibly. "What do you want?" "I want a divorce. A fair divorce, with full disclosure of assets and a reasonable settlement." She looked at Jennifer. "What I don't want is to destroy innocent people in the process." She turned to me. "David, I'm sorry you had to find out this way, but I thought you deserved to know the truth." "I appreciate that." "Jennifer," Patricia continued, "I don't know what Robert promised you, but I can guarantee he had no intention of leaving his marriage. He never does." Jennifer was crying now, tears streaming down her face. "You don't understand." "I understand perfectly. You thought you found a successful older man who would take care of you. Instead, You found a serial cheater who was using you exactly the same way he's used a dozen other women. That's enough, Harrison said, standing up. We're leaving. Sit down, Robert. Something in Patricia's voice made him comply. We're going to finish this conversation like civilized adults. Jennifer, you have a choice to make. You can try to save your marriage to a good man who loves you, or you can continue this affair with a man who will discard you the moment someone younger comes along. Jennifer looked at me through her tears. David, Don't, I said quietly. Not here, not now. Robert, Patricia continued, you also have a choice. We can handle this divorce quietly and amicably, or I can make sure everyone in your professional and social circle knows exactly what kind of man you are. Harrison nodded miserably. Good. I'll have my attorney contact you next week. Patricia stood and placed money on the table for her wine. David, if you need anything, legal recommendations, someone to talk to, please call me. She walked out of the restaurant with her head high, leaving the three of us sitting in the wreckage of our respective lives. Harrison left next, mumbling something about needing air. Jennifer and I sat in silence for several minutes, surrounded by the quiet conversations and clinking glasses of other diners who were having normal evenings with people they trusted. I'm sorry, she said finally. I know. I never meant for it to go this far. But it did. Is there any way we can fix this? I looked at my wife. Her smeared makeup, her devastated expression, her hands trembling as she reached for her wine glass, and felt nothing but exhaustion. I don't think so, Jennifer. David, please. You've been lying to me for months. About your job, about where you go during the day, about who you're talking to on the phone. I paused. About who you're sleeping with. It wasn't supposed to happen. I was vulnerable, unemployed, feeling like a failure. So you decided to have an affair with my boss. I decided to accept comfort from someone who seemed to understand what I was going through. By meeting him in hotel rooms. She had no answer for that. Jennifer, I need you to understand something. This isn't just about the affair. It's about the lies. It's about the fact that you've been living a completely fabricated life for most of our marriage. I was ashamed. You were selfish. You made choices that served your needs without any consideration for how they would affect me. We sat in silence again. Around us, the restaurant continued its normal rhythm, but our corner table felt isolated from the rest of the world. What happens now? Jennifer asked. Now we go home. Tomorrow we start figuring out how to end this marriage. David. Jennifer, it's over. It was over the moment you decided to lie to me about where you worked. Everything that happened after that just made it worse. She nodded, accepting the finality in my voice. We drove home in separate cars, ending our marriage the same way we'd been living it for months, separately, dishonestly, with nothing left to say to each other. The next morning, Jennifer was gone. She'd packed 2 suitcases and left a note on the kitchen counter. Staying with my sister while we figure things out. I'm sorry for everything. I sat in our empty kitchen, drinking coffee and staring at the note, feeling nothing but relief. The lies were finally over. The uncertainty was finally over. Now, there was just the practical matter of dismantling a life we'd built on false foundations. My phone rang around 10 o'clock. Patricia. How are you holding up? She asked. Better than I expected. Jennifer left this morning. I'm sorry. That must be difficult. Actually, it's not. The difficult part was not knowing. Now I know. I understand completely. Robert moved into a hotel last night. He tried to convince me that the affair was over, that it had only happened a few times, that he was willing to work on our marriage. What did you tell him? I told him that 15 years was long enough to spend married to a liar. We were quiet for a moment, 2 people who had discovered they had more in common than either of us had wanted. Patricia, I want to thank you for last night, for handling it the way you did. You don't need to thank me. We were both victims of the same deception. Still, you could have confronted them privately, saved yourself the awkwardness of involving me. David, can I tell you something? Of course. Last night wasn't just about confronting them. It was about reclaiming my dignity. For 15 years, I've been the understanding wife, the one who looked the other way, who made excuses for Robert's behavior. Last night, I finally stopped being a victim. You were never a victim, Patricia. You were trying to save your marriage. Maybe. Or maybe I was just afraid to face the truth. What's the difference? The difference is that victims have things happen to them. I made choices. I chose to ignore the signs, chose to believe the lies, chose to enable his behavior by never holding him accountable. It was a harsh self-assessment, but I understood what she meant. I had made similar choices with Jennifer, accepting her explanations, ignoring my instincts, choosing the comfortable lie over the difficult truth. What happens now? I asked. Now we rebuild. Separately, honestly, without the weight of other people's deceptions. After we hung up, I spent the day walking through our house, deciding what belonged to Jennifer and what belonged to me. It was easier than I'd expected. Most of our shared possessions held no emotional significance now that I knew our marriage had been built on lies. Monday morning brought the awkwardness of returning to work. Harrison was in his office with the door closed when I arrived, and he stayed there most of the day. When we finally encountered each other in the hallway around 3 o'clock, he looked like he hadn't slept in days. David, can we talk? About what? About what happened Saturday night. About how we move forward professionally. There's nothing to discuss, Robert. You had an affair with my wife. My wife lied to me for months. Both of those things are over now. I want you to know that I never intended. I don't care what you intended. It's just, we still have to work together. Do we? The question seemed to catch him off guard. You're not thinking of leaving the company? I'm thinking of a lot of things. David, please, don't let this situation affect your career. You're a valuable employee. Robert, let me stop you right there. My career will be fine. Your marriage is over. My marriage is over. But I'm not the one who made the choices that led to this situation. I know that. Do you? Because you seem to think this is something that happened to us, rather than something you did. He had no response to that. I'm going to finish out my projects, and then we'll see where things stand, I continued. But don't expect things to go back to normal between us. Normal ended when you decided to pursue my wife. That evening, Jennifer called. David, we need to talk about practical things. The house, the bank accounts, the car payments. Okay. Can we meet somewhere? Neutral ground? The coffee shop on 5th Street. Tomorrow at 7. Thank you. The next evening, I arrived at the coffee shop first and chose a table near the back. Jennifer walked in exactly on time, looking smaller somehow, diminished by the events of the past few days. You look tired, she said, sitting across from me. I am tired. David, I know you don't want to hear this, but I need to say it. I'm sorry. Not just for the affair, but for all of it. For lying about my job, for lying about where I was, for putting you in an impossible situation. I appreciate that. Do you think, is there any chance we could try counseling? Try to work through this? I had expected this question, but it still caught me off guard. Jennifer, what would counseling accomplish? It might help us understand how we got here, help us figure out if there's anything worth saving. I already understand how we got here. You lost your job and were too ashamed to tell me. Instead of dealing with that honestly, you constructed an elaborate lie that lasted for months. When you met Robert, you saw an opportunity for comfort, for validation, for financial security, and you took it without considering how it would affect me. That's exactly what happened. And the reason I know that's what happened is because you're still doing it now. What do you mean? You're still trying to manage the situation instead of taking responsibility for it. You want counseling not because you think our marriage can be saved, but because you think it might be easier than starting over on your own. She was quiet for a long moment. Maybe you're right. I know I'm right. So what do? We get divorced. Quickly, quietly, and as fairly as possible. And then what? Then we move on with our lives. We spent the next hour discussing practical matters: who would keep the house, me, how we would divide our limited assets, equally, whether we needed lawyers, probably. It was a surprisingly civil conversation, perhaps because we both knew it was really over. As we prepared to leave, Jennifer reached across the table and touched my hand. David, I want you to know that I did love you. I do love you. I know. But that wasn't enough, was it? No, it wasn't. 2 weeks later, I came home to find Patricia Harrison sitting in her car in my driveway. I hope you don't mind, she said as I approached her window. I wanted to see how you were doing, and I was in the neighborhood. Of course. Would you like to come in? If you're sure it's not an imposition. I made coffee while Patricia looked around our living room, taking in the changes I'd made since Jennifer left. It looks different, she said. Jennifer took most of the decorative things. I'm not much for interior design. It looks more honest somehow, more like someone actually lives here instead of just staging it. We sat in the living room drinking coffee and talking about the practical aspects of divorce, lawyers, asset division, the strange process of untangling a shared life. How are your children handling it? I asked. Better than I expected. I think they knew something was wrong long before I was ready to admit it. Patricia paused. What about you? Any regrets? About the divorce? No? About the marriage? I don't know. It's hard to regret something that was based on false premises. Do you think Jennifer really loved you? I think she loved the idea of being married to me, the stability, the respectability, the financial security, but I don't think she loved me enough to be honest with me. And Robert, I think he loved the excitement of pursuing someone new, someone who made him feel young and desirable, but he never loved anyone enough to leave his marriage. So they were both getting something they needed, just not from the right people. Exactly. We finished our coffee in comfortable silence, two people who had discovered they understood each other in ways they'd never expected. David, can I ask you something personal? Sure. Are you angry? About the affair? About all of it? The lies, the betrayal, the way your marriage ended? I considered the question. I was angry. For a few days I was furious, but now, I'm just grateful it's over. Grateful? I spent months knowing something was wrong, but not knowing what. I was questioning my instincts, my perceptions, my sanity. Now I know I was right to be suspicious. There's something liberating about having your reality validated. Patricia nodded. I know exactly what you mean. She left an hour later, but not before giving me her phone number and making me promise to call if I needed anything, legal advice, someone to talk to, or just a friend who understood what I'd been through. That night, I sat in my living room, looking around at the space that was finally, honestly, mine. The house felt different without Jennifer's things, without the weight of her secrets, without the constant tension of unspoken truths. For the first time in months, I felt like I could breathe. 3 months later, the divorce was final. Jennifer had moved to another city, ostensibly for a new job, but probably to escape the embarrassment of the affair's exposure. Harrison and Patricia's divorce was proceeding more slowly, complicated by 15 years of shared assets and 2 children, but proceeding nonetheless. I had taken a new job with a different firm, partly to escape the awkwardness of working for my ex-wife's former lover, but mostly because I was ready for a fresh start. The new position paid better and offered more opportunities for advancement. Patricia and I had become genuine friends, bonded by our shared experience, but not defined by it. We met for coffee occasionally, attended a few social events together as friends, and provided each other with the kind of support that only comes from someone who truly understands what you've survived. One evening, as I was leaving my new office, my phone rang. Jennifer. David, I hope it's okay that I'm calling. It's fine. How are you? I'm getting by. I wanted to call because I heard about your new job. Congratulations. Thank you. I also wanted to tell you that I'm in therapy, real therapy, not couples counseling or anything like that. Individual therapy to figure out why I made the choices I made. That's good, Jennifer. I'm glad. I'm learning a lot about myself. Not all of it is pleasant. Growth rarely is. David, I know this doesn't change anything, but I want you to know that I understand now how badly I hurt you, not just with the affair, but with all the lies that came before it. I appreciate you saying that. I also want you to know that you deserved better. You deserved honesty, loyalty, respect. You deserved a real partner, not someone who was just using you for stability while she figured out what she really wanted. Jennifer, please let me finish. I know I can't undo the damage I did to our marriage, to your trust, to your life. But I can acknowledge it. I can take responsibility for it. And I can promise you that I'm working to become the kind of person who won't do that to someone else. That means a lot. Does it really? Yes, it does. We talked for a few more minutes about inconsequential things. Her new job, my new apartment, the weather. But underneath the small talk was something that had been missing from our relationship for months. Honesty. When we hung up, I felt something I hadn't expected to feel about Jennifer. Hope. Not hope for reconciliation, that ship had sailed, but hope that she might actually become the person she was claiming to want to be. 6 months after that conversation, I ran into Harrison at a restaurant downtown. He was alone, looking older and somehow smaller than I remembered. David, he said, approaching my table hesitantly. I know you probably don't want to see me, but I wondered if I could buy you a drink. I'm just finishing dinner, but sure. He sat across from me, fidgeting with his napkin. I wanted to apologize. I know it's too little, too late, but I needed to say it. Okay. What I did was inexcusable. Not just the affair, but the way I handled it afterward. The lies, the manipulation, the way I put you in an impossible position at work. Robert, please, let me finish. I've lost my marriage. My relationship with my children is damaged, and I've destroyed my reputation in this city. But the thing that bothers me most is what I did to you. What you did to me. You were a good employee, a decent man, and I betrayed your trust in the worst possible way. I pursued your wife, lied to your face, and then tried to make you complicit in covering it up. I studied his face, looking for signs of manipulation or self-serving justification. Instead, I saw something I'd never seen from him before. Genuine remorse. I accept your apology, I said. Just like that? Just like that. Why? Because holding on to anger would hurt me more than it would hurt you. Because I've moved on with my life, and staying angry would keep me tied to the past. And because I think you're genuinely sorry. I am. Then we're done here. He nodded and stood to leave, then turned back. David, for what it's worth, you handled the whole situation with more class than I would have in your position. I had a good partner. Patricia? Patricia. He smiled sadly. She always was the better person in our marriage. I just never appreciated it until it was too late. After he left, I sat in the restaurant for another hour, thinking about forgiveness, accountability, and the strange ways people's lives intersect and separate. A year later, I was in a new relationship with a woman named Rachel, a fellow accountant I'd met through work. She was honest, straightforward, and refreshingly uncomplicated. When she said she was working late, she was actually working late. When she said she loved me, I believed her. Patricia had also moved on, dating a widowed real estate attorney who appreciated her intelligence and strength. Her children were thriving, apparently happier in a household without the constant undercurrent of their father's deceptions. One evening, Rachel and I were having dinner when she asked me about my marriage to Jennifer. "Do you ever regret how it ended?" "You mean the confrontation dinner?" "All of it. The investigation, the dramatic revelation, the public humiliation." I thought about it. "No. I regret that it was necessary, but I don't regret how it happened." "Why not?" "Because the alternative was living in a lie indefinitely. Jennifer wasn't going to tell me the truth, and Harrison wasn't going to end the affair. If Patricia and I hadn't forced the issue, I might have spent years wondering why my wife was so secretive, why my boss was so interested in her, why I felt like a stranger in my own marriage. But it must have been painful. It was. But it was also liberating." "How so?" "For months I felt like I was going crazy. I knew something was wrong, but I couldn't prove it. I was questioning my own perceptions, my own sanity. The confrontation gave me back my reality." Rachel nodded thoughtfully. "I can understand that. The truth is, Rachel, I'm grateful for the whole experience." "Grateful?" "It taught me what I won't accept in a relationship. It showed me the difference between love and convenience, between partnership and deception. It made me appreciate honesty in a way I never had before." "Is that why you're with me?" "I'm with you because you're smart, funny, beautiful, and kind. But I appreciate you because you're honest." "Always?" "Always." That night, as Rachel slept beside me, I thought about the journey that had brought me to this point. 1.5 years ago, I had been married to a woman who lied to me daily, working for a man who was betraying me, living in a reality that was largely fabricated. Now I was with someone who told me the truth, even when it was inconvenient. I worked for people who respected me and valued my contributions. I lived in a reality I had chosen, based on facts I could verify and trust I had earned. The path from there to here had been painful, humiliating, and difficult, but it had also been necessary. Sometimes the only way to build something real is to first tear down everything false. And sometimes the best thing that can happen to a marriage built on lies is for those lies to finally be exposed, so that everyone involved can stop living in a fantasy and start building something genuine. I never spoke to Jennifer again after that phone call, but I heard through mutual friends that she had indeed changed. She was in a new relationship, but this time she was being honest about her past, her struggles, and her commitment to doing better. Harrison had moved to another city and started over professionally. By all accounts, he was keeping a lower profile and treating people with more respect. Patricia and I remained friends, bound by our shared experience, but free to build new lives based on truth rather than deception. And I learned something valuable about myself. I was stronger than I had thought, more resilient than I had imagined, and more deserving of honesty than I had believed. The marriage that ended in that restaurant had been built on lies, sustained by deception, and destroyed by the truth. The life that emerged from its ashes was built on honesty, sustained by respect, and strengthened by the knowledge that some things are worth fighting for, and some things are worth walking away from. In the end, the best revenge against people who lie to you isn't hurting them back. It's building a life so honest, so genuine, and so fulfilling that their deception becomes irrelevant. It's refusing to let their choices define your future. It's choosing truth, even when truth is difficult. Especially when truth is difficult. Because in the end, the truth doesn't just set you free. It shows you who you really are. And sometimes, that's the most valuable gift betrayal can give you.